I still remember the day Matilda came to my door, barefoot, her clothes torn and her arms shaking. She had run through the bush in the dark with her baby tied to her back because her mother-in-law and her sister-in-law had just tried to bury her alive. They had already poured sand into her mouth by the time she screamed. That was the part I couldn't stop replaying in my head for weeks. The way Matilda told me her mouth was full of earth and she thought she had reached the end. Her baby was crying beside her in the middle of the night, and the only people watching were the same ones trying to kill her. This story still makes me sick, but I have to tell it because nobody believed her at first, not even me. Matilda and I grew up in the same village in Oka. She was always the soft, quiet one. She never raised her voice, never cursed anyone, never liked drama, and was always very respectful. When we were teenagers, we'd sit under the mango tree and talk about our future, getting into Nnamdi Azikiwe University to study nursing, eventually meeting our husbands, men who would treat us like queens and take us away from the cold hands of village life. At least, I thought that was the plan. She met Obiora a few months after she finished secondary school, during one of her visits to Onitsha, where her favorite cousin lived with her husband. Obiora was the one who walked up to her and introduced himself as her in-law's friend. He was charming, well-spoken, and he was about to open a mechanic shop in town. The both of them enjoyed each other's company, and from that day, they kept in touch. Obiora started paying little visits to the village just to see my friend, and likewise, she would also look for opportunities to go visit her cousin in Onitsha, just so she could see Obiora. The way they had gotten so close in just a few months was quite out of the blue, but I couldn't say anything because they looked so much in love with each other. One day, Matilda came to pay me a visit, her face all glittering with pure happiness and bliss when she showed me the ring. Obiora had proposed and they were getting married. At first, I thought she was rushing things. They had just met and she had already accepted his proposal after only 5 months. Plus, I thought the plan was to finish our education first before marriage. But who was I to talk? She looked happy and her parents supported it. They had their traditional wedding and she moved into his family house, a large bungalow on the outskirts of town where he lived with his widowed mother and his younger sister Chioma. That was where the nightmare began. The first sign something was off came barely a month after the wedding. Matilda told me she had to wake up at 4 a.m. every day to fetch water from the stream alone, even though there were 3 tanks behind the house. Mama Obiora said the tanks were only for real members of the family. Matilda, as the new wife, had to earn her place. She would wash everybody's clothes, including Chioma's, and still be insulted for not washing them white enough. If she cooked, they said the food was bland. If she cleaned, they said she was lazy. They never called her by her name. It was always this girl, or that thing your son married, or that thing your brother married. What made things worse was Obiora's silence. He never shouted at them or corrected them, but he also never defended her. He'd come home, eat, sleep, and leave. If Matilda complained, he would say, "Don't worry, it's just how my mother is. With time, she will accept you." Time passed. Nothing changed. Things came to a head when Matilda got pregnant. Instead of joy, Mama Obiora became colder. She started saying things like, "Let's wait and see if this child even belongs to our blood." And pregnancy is easy. It's giving birth that shows the difference between a wife and a witch. Chioma would spray insecticide near Matilda's food. I'm not even joking. One day, Matilda caught her holding the can and pointing it into the pot of soup that was on fire. When Matilda shouted, Chioma laughed and said she was just disinfecting it. Still, Matilda said nothing to anyone outside the house except me and made me promise not to tell her family. She was raised to respect her in-laws, to keep family matters private. I begged her to leave, and she told me, "What will people say? That I ran away from my husband's house?" Then, she gave birth, a beautiful baby girl named Adanna, fair-skinned, round face, with a tiny birthmark on her right leg. Obiora didn't smile. His mother didn't even hold the child. To make matters worse, they started saying the baby didn't look like Obiora, that Matilda had probably been sleeping with someone else before the wedding. Chioma even told one of their neighbors that Matilda planned the pregnancy just to trap Obiora. Worst part, her mother was not even allowed to come for Omugwo. Obiora stylishly told Mama Matilda that the mother and the sister are capable of taking good care of her and the baby, so she shouldn't bother. Matilda ended up doing everything herself. A young mother who had just had a baby still had to fetch water from the stream with her newborn on her back. She had to learn to care for the baby all on her own, while still having to wash, cook, clean, and cater to every single person in that house. She spent many lonely nights crying and wishing she could turn back the hands of time. This went on for weeks. One Sunday, Obiora traveled to Nnewi for business. That night, Matilda was breastfeeding Adanna when Mama Obiora knocked on her door. "Come, follow us to the back of the compound," she said. "There is a smell near the yam barn. We think something died." It was past 10 p.m. Matilda followed barefoot, with the baby in her hands, and as soon as they reached the back fence, Chioma appeared with a shovel. Before my friend could ask what was going on, Chioma slammed something heavy on her back and she fell. Both mother and daughter began to beat up my poor friend mercilessly, without even considering the baby she was carrying. They dragged her to a shallow pit. It was already dug, meaning they had been planning it. As they threw sand on her body, they told her that witches don't deserve to live, that it was better for Obiora to be free than to remain under her spell. They stuffed her mouth with sand. She tried to scream, but the tears had restricted her airways. Adanna was wailing, loud and sharp. That sound, Matilda said, gave her strength. She used her elbow to hit Chioma in the stomach, rolled sideways, and kicked Mama Obiora. She ran. No shoes, no flashlight. Her wrapper was torn, but she didn't stop. She ran through the bush for almost 40 minutes, baby still in her arms. When she got to my house, I couldn't recognize her. Her face was bleeding. Her hands were scraped. Her lips were swollen. She couldn't talk for a full minute. And when she finally did, I swear my whole body went cold. The next morning, my father took Matilda and Adanna to her parents' house, and for the first time, she told them everything that had been happening to her in her matrimonial home. That same day, we all angrily stormed to Obiora's house, but fortunately for them, no one was at home, like they knew trouble was coming. We then went straight to his uncle's house, where some of Obiora's family elders were gathered. We told them everything that had happened, every detail. The elders opened their mouths wide in shock. At first, they were silent. Then one of the elders, the oldest among them, shook his head slowly and said, "This is no small matter. Call Obiora home immediately." They sent word to him in Nnewi. A week later, Obiora returned. When he arrived, elders gathered again. Matilda was seated in front of everyone, with her baby in her arms. Her voice was shaking, but she spoke. She told her story, from beginning to end. From how they had treated her poorly from day one, to how she was hit, dragged, and almost buried alive, while her child screamed beside her, and how she managed to escape, running barefoot through the bush with blood on her legs and fear in her chest. The compound was quiet. Nobody said a word. Everyone was waiting to see what Obiora would say or do. He looked at his mother first, then at Matilda. His face was blank. No emotion, no confusion, no concern. Then he said, "If you knew they didn't like you, why didn't you stay inside that night?" Just like that. No anger, no questions, no apology. The elders were stunned. One of them asked him if he truly understood what his wife had just said, that they tried to kill her. Obiora shrugged and replied, "She has always been dramatic." Then he stood up and said he didn't want her back in his house, that he needed peace in his home, not noise and stories. That was the moment we all knew he had chosen his side, and it wasn't hers. Matilda didn't utter a word. She just stood there, staring at Obiora as if she was seeing a stranger. Then she reached into her wrapper, brought out a small envelope, and dropped it on the table in front of the elders. "This," she said calmly, "is proof that I gave Obiora 100,000 naira from my savings to help him start his shop last year, before the wedding, before anything." Everyone turned to Obiora. He looked stunned. She continued, her voice steady. "I gave him that money with trust and love. I even confided in him, telling him that the money was given to me by my uncle as a gift for when I would go into the university. Obiora begged me for this money with his life, even promised to send me to school once his business starts booming, and I willingly gave him the money without even telling my family. I thought we were building something together. Instead, he let them treat me like dirt. He treated me like dirt."
One of the elders picked up the paper and read it. A handwritten IOU with Obiora's signature and the date. Obiora tried to speak. I was going to pay it back." Matilda turned to his uncle and said, "He won't need to. I don't want the money anymore. I just want my peace." Then she looked Obiora straight in the eyes and said, "You didn't just lose a wife. You lost someone who was ready to fight for you, even when you wouldn't lift a finger for me." She strapped her baby on her back and walked out of the gathering, slow, calm, and unbothered. But here's the twist. As soon as she left, Obiora's other secrets started coming out. One of his relatives, a distant cousin, spoke up and said Obiora had already gotten another girl pregnant in town, a 19-year-old apprentice from his workshop. He had promised her marriage even while Matilda was still in his house. The room exploded. The same mother who had insulted Matilda was now speechless. Shoma's mouth was wide open. Obiora didn't say a word. After all, there was nothing left to say. Matilda was gone. And for once, everyone saw the truth without her having to prove anything. Matilda moved in with her uncle the following week. It was a nice big house and, most importantly, peaceful. She made the difficult decision to leave Adanna with her parents so they could help care for her while she tried to rebuild her life.
She wanted to give her daughter something better, and she knew it had to start with her. While staying with her uncle, Matilda wrote her WAEC and JAM. She passed both in flying colors, and that same year, she gained admission into the university, the very one we had dreamed about when we were teenagers, sitting under the mango tree and talking about our future. We even became roommates, just like we once said we would. Time passed, we laughed again, and slowly she began to heal. We both studied hard and eventually graduated years later. The following year, I got married to one of our friends from school, a quiet, kind doctor named Toby who loved me and adored me, genuinely. I remember Matilda standing beside me on my wedding day, smiling so wide it made my heart full. Then came her own chapter. She got an opportunity to move to Canada through a study and work program. With support from a few friends and help from her uncle, she took the chance. She left with Adanna, who was now in primary school. It wasn't easy at first. Long hours, cold weather, no family, but she pushed through like she always did. Years later, she met someone, a kind and very wealthy white man who loved her deeply. They later got married in a classy, beautiful ceremony. And today, they have 2 children together. And Adanna is thriving like the star she was always meant to be. As for Obiora and his family, well, he couldn't keep the business going because he lacked vision, discipline, and no one left to blame. He married the 19-year-old apprentice he got pregnant. Yes, that same girl. And she also gave birth to a baby girl. But life was hard. There was no peace and no money. Eventually, the girl ran away with her baby, leaving Obiora, saying she couldn't suffer with a poor man. Mama Obiora and Chioma, they left too. They packed their bags and moved to Mama Obiora's mother's village, claiming they needed a fresh start. But even there, people complained bitterly, saying they were loud, rude, always gossiping, and always looking for trouble. After a few months, they disappeared again. No one knows where they are or where they went. And Obiora, he stayed behind, alone, no wife, no business, no family, just him and the silence he once gave Matilda. Funny how life turns, isn't it?